And now to the present, we have a great panel on what's all the brouhaha about. And we have anchor Michelle Wright from WTAE going to moderate it.
Hi, well, wow, we're just getting in. Let me just pass off this stuff. Here you go, honey.
I think we go sit down now.
It's great to be here, and we have a great panel here. These are some of the most impressive people in Pittsburgh, and I sincerely mean that, and I haven't even met you. You must be Quintin, right? Yes. I'm so sorry. We're all just getting here. This is a group that's really changing Pittsburgh, and some of it's quiet, and a lot of it, though, you're hearing a lot about because these guys are getting national attention. So let me introduce you to the panel. A lot of you probably already recognize these people, but first there's Bill Fuller, executive chef of the Big Burrito Restaurant Group. Nice to have you. Quintin Bullock, president at Community College of Allegheny County. Let's see, we're out of order. Kate Romane, chef and owner of E Squared and Kate Romane Productions. Sonja Finn, chef and owner of Dinette, consulting chef, Carnegie Museums of Pittsburgh. Dominic Cincotta of CoStar Brewing. And finally, we have Tracy Certo, the publisher of NEXTpittsburgh. So let's give them a round of applause first. And let's just get right to it, because food is important, and it's starting to define Pittsburgh in many ways. So I want each of you to think about what you think this group should know about the importance of food and what it means to Pittsburgh, and why we should care so much about that. Bill, let's start with you.
So I've been here in Pittsburgh cooking for 22 years now, and when I first got here, there were a few restaurants, but not a lot. And since I have been here, the growth has been spectacular, especially in the last 5 years. You know, there was some slow growth for the first 10, and then it's just escalated. Now all over Pittsburgh, there are lots of small chef-owner restaurants that are really good. There's affordable choices that are delicious. The food supply, especially with local foods and seasonal foods, has continued to grow. And it's really an awesome time for Pittsburgh food, and I'm super proud to be part of it.
Quintin.
The Community College of Allegheny County is celebrating 50 years, and we see our role as providing the education, workforce training to support the small businesses, the large businesses, and to prepare and employ a trained workforce that can support and sustain the recognition that Pittsburgh has gathered. So it's important for the community college to prepare the programs to ensure that future restaurants, cafes, hotels have the workforce to support their needs.
Kate.
Being a small business in Pittsburgh is challenging, but I think that one of the things, as we were talking, if you guys were in here earlier, you know, we're attracting all of this attention from people, and people are moving to Pittsburgh from bigger cities, and they're wanting the amenities that they're used to in places like New York and San Francisco. So we want to be able to provide that kind of level of service and quality food here, and it's great.
Yeah, that's definitely happening. All right, Sonja.
Okay. Well, I opened Dinette in 2008, and it's always been focused on making responsible decisions, being sustainable in terms of the not just the supply of food, which is what people usually think about, but also being part of the community, paying living wages, providing health insurance for my employees. And I think this is something we need to think about. If we're going to say that we're coming in as a new food city, or we're establishing ourselves as a food city, we need to think whether this consumer demand for faster, cheaper, available 24/7 is really consistent with being the employers that we want to be and providing the jobs that we want to provide in our city.
Dominic. I think a lot of people must agree with you. Dominic.
So when I think about beer, I think about it, especially in Pittsburgh, in two different ways. I mean, one, in terms of the tech startups that we have here and people working here, people coming to work here, people work very hard and long hours. you need a creative space to relax, and that's where some of the best ideas come from, and beer can provide that, and the new breweries opening up certainly
How many
provides
people
some
agree with
creative
that?
space.
All right, okay.
And then also, consumers of beer tend to be, in reference to the parks, tend to be outdoorsy. We personally, both me and my partner, mountain bike, kayak, fish, tend to be outdoorsy, so we take advantage of the parks all the time and different things. So they also tend to be early adopters, so it's a great community. The beer community is the people that are going to test your products and your tech innovations that you're coming up with. So food and beer are kind of the fun side to think everything else we're talking about here.
Okay, Tracy.
So Next Pittsburgh is a publication all about the people advancing the city in a lot of different ways, from culture, arts and culture, from different events we do, job postings, the parks, all kinds of things. But I can tell you, we always like to say we have a very smart and connected and engaged audience. But I also like to say we have a very hungry audience, because every time we write about food, they devour it. Food, drink, craft beer. We've written about all three of you, of course. Bill Fuller, of course, who was so instrumental in the whole food scene in Pittsburgh. But just to give you an idea, when that recent article came out, New York Times, about the youth-driven food scene, it was like #1 article in no time. We broke it first locally, and it was the best read article that week. So I think it really matters just in terms of what we see in readership all the time in Next Pittsburgh. Food and drinks, where it's at. It's a big part of the scene.
Yeah. And it is starting to define us. We are getting this reputation. New York Times and so many other magazines have written about Pittsburgh, but let's talk about what that means practically. I mean, for a lot of us, we love your food, and it's just spectacular in so many ways, and it really provides so much enjoyment for us. But what does that mean for the city? Why should the city care in terms of jobs and tax dollars and attracting new businesses here? What kind of a role does that play? Bill?
Well, I mean, we have a couple of restaurants in Shadyside in Soba and Casbah, and we see a lot of recruitment dinners come in. So, you know, it's an important thing for companies bringing people in to show them that there's good food and drink. And as I think Kate said, you know, people are moving here from major metropolitan areas, and they're used to a high level of dining and service. And it's important for us to grow there so we can keep up. You know, there's hundreds of apartments being built around the city that are going to be filled by people who have disposable income that want to go out to eat and drink, and it's, you know, we have to supply it. You know, the downside is, you know, this rapid growth, we've not been able to keep up with it as far as the labor force and the infrastructure, suppliers, employees, trained employees, and so that's something we're really working hard. I mean, as a group, you know, every time a bunch of chefs sit down with a beer, the first thing that comes out is, you hire anybody? No. You? No. So that's one of the problems we have. You know, we're growing, it's a growing city, and I hope to see immigration not just from these really brilliant people who are coming to open these companies and staff them, but also people to come in here and, you know, pave the streets and, you know, work in the restaurants and work in the garages. You know, that's what I want to see come to Pittsburgh too.
Yeah, it does trickle down in so many other parts of society. And Quintin, how are you doing in terms of raising people up to fulfill the needs of businesses in terms of the restaurant scene here?
Well, it's an area that we are really concentrating on. We've been working very closely, most recently following up with some work that was done on the north side that spoke about the need to look for some concentrated trainings. And with all the activity and conversations and demands that are focused on restaurants and foods, the college has developed and expanded a program in the culinary arts. We're working very diligently to finalize plans for a new facility that will help to increase the number of persons that will have access to the training, and then to also to continue to increase our outreach with the businesses, restaurants, cafes, the chefs, to really understand what their needs are. Most recently, we've hired some new chefs at the college to help connect the college to the restaurants and to really engage in that conversation and to help us understand what are the specific training needs and the skills that we want to ensure that our students and graduates are coming, so that we can begin to increase the output of graduates that respond to all of the workforce demands that are current and future.
And Kate, how are you doing in terms of your staff? And I want to hear more about the chance that you took, because your restaurant and your menu is so unique and spectacular. I want to hear more about were you nervous at all when you started something like that? How did that go?
Well, I started without a business plan and $4,000 in my bank account and a really bad business partner, so it wasn't the easiest beginning, and it was certainly, at the time when we started, was before this big boom. And I don't think that that sort of a situation would ever succeed ever again. So I was really lucky. And Pittsburgh is one of those food cultures that we're all supportive of each other, even though we're all having the same challenge of not having a lot of staff to choose from or talent to bring up. We've always been really supportive. So that's the way that my restaurant kind of started, with just friends and family, literally like painting the walls. And with that, it's always about supporting the local economy. So kind of, Dominic had his first event in our basement, and it's kind of all these relationships start to build a bigger economy, and the more people you bring into the fold, we're starting to see smaller businesses elevate, I guess. Is that
So it's still on the upswing. You're seeing
on the
a positive thing.
But we do have that challenge. It's, I'm lucky that I've had a staff that's like really loyal, has been there from the beginning, but we're still having, as we grow, it's hard to grow without having a huge pool of good cooks to pull from. So I think
That's your challenge.
Especially because how many restaurants are opening? Like you guys just wrote an article, I think, about it's like 18 restaurants or new restaurants that just try. And like when I started, it was like one.
Right. Things are changing.
Quickly.
And Sonja, I know you're passionate about wages and for the staff and talking about that. How do we make that happen? Because I know the margin is small in the restaurant industry and everybody's fighting over that and we want to all succeed. So how do we do that in terms of our workforce?
Well, I don't have 100% of an answer. I mean, I can tell you that at Dinette, that was what was going to happen. I mean, that was my plan, that I was going to pay a living wage, and really how I make up for it, and I make up for it now, is my labor. So I don't know how you might do it if you are if you're a owner who's not a chef.
Right.
But I can have my staff work 40-hour weeks, but I can put in 80-hour weeks. I can be so when I started, I was front of the house manager and office manager and HR and the chef and the sous chef and all that. I've been able to step back a little bit. Now I have a front of the house manager, but I do as much as I can do because there's only, we could have the large conversation of restaurants are too cheap. Where we have people who going out to eat is a luxury, and I don't think that luxury needs to happen at the expense of people being underpaid. But saying that, it always puts me in a weird situation where people are like, well, then she must just charge so much at Dinette to make up for that. No, I just work 80-hour weeks. Like, that's what I do.
But it's a challenge nationwide to figure out that balance.
It is, because people see money going through. Tons of money comes into the restaurant and tons of money goes out. And so it's just what you can get your hands on while it's coming, before it goes out. It is a challenge nationwide, but we really need to think about it. You really need to think, if you're going into a restaurant and so the space is being paid for and the utilities, and then, somebody bought the food, so that includes food, everything that's there, your plate, all that had to be purchased, and all that breaks, and this repurchase, and then, somebody's washing your dishes, somebody's cooking for you, all these things, how inexpensive do you expect it to be?
All right, let's talk about craft beer a little bit now. So what is your plan? How does your company work and deal with so many different restaurants?
So for those of us who don't know, we're probably the smallest brewery in Pittsburgh. We've been around for about 5 years, distribution for maybe 3.5. We're in a one-car garage in Highland Park, worked with the local community council, built on a plan to not necessarily become famous or make $1 million or whatever. It was really, it's me and a partner. We both have full-time jobs brewing for the passion of it. The story that everybody tells now, which I think we need to get away from, that I'm the new guy and I'm on your block and I make beer. But we really grew it with the intention of distributing to the local restaurants and bars, and I think we've worked with just about everybody up here, in the fact that we're going to brew beer to the best of our ability, try new things, distribute it to the bars, and let the public react, and also with the hope that you go out looking for us. You sit at a bar and you try some amazing food, but you also try our beer, plus anybody else who in the city who's brewing. I think the danger right now in the community that's moving and the rate that craft beer is growing in Pittsburgh is that we get stuck in an old narrative of, hey, I'm the local brewer and I make beer close to you. It's not focused on new and good things, which to Kate's point, people are coming here and they expect new things. When you think of, I just happened to do my doctoral study in the regional brand identity of brewing in Western PA. When you think of brewing around the country, they have regional identities in Colorado and Portland and San Francisco and Asheville, North Carolina. But what does Pittsburgh become? We don't want to be just the new guy on the block. So what are we developing that's new, that's going to attract those people to come here, to try the new beer, to try the new food that you can't get anywhere else? And I think that's a challenge because everybody wants to jump in with huge systems and go into massive distribution, that there's really a danger of taking the time to develop a quality product and focus on that. And then also taking the time to experiment before you go crazy big. I mean, we don't have a tap room. We brew 1 day a week. We brew 1 barrel a week. So it's very, very small. We don't take a paycheck. It's done from a 12 to 15 hour day on Saturday.
And how does Pittsburgh compare with the rest of the country when it comes to that?
I think that one thing that we've noticed, and it's been written about, is has Pittsburgh reached saturation with microbreweries? And the answer is absolutely not. If you've traveled around, we do a lot of traveling. I said mountain bikers. If you go down to Asheville, North Carolina, they have a brewery every block. I mean, right now you have a couple of small breweries in Lawrenceville, you've got a couple in the north side, you've got a couple in Millvale, but you still have to drive to get there. So we're not there yet. We've got a lot of room to grow. And I think that the important thing is to demand from the breweries is quality beer and different atmospheres and everywhere. Not everybody needs a chalk board, and not everybody needs a dog-friendly atmosphere and the cookie-cutter brewery. And that's one thing I think we pride on. We're in a garage. Like, that's just the fact
in the garage.
Yeah, and
Love it.
we intend on maintaining that. So I think the differentiation, working together, I mean, the one great thing that Pittsburgh does have going for it, that there's Meg Evans, the brewer at Rock Bottom, is great at championing this, is working as a family. So the brewing industry in Pittsburgh, it's not a competitive. I think this kind of carries over to some of the restaurants too, is that we really work together. We share ideas, we share concepts, we share failures together. Pittsburgh Craft Beer Week is coming up, and that's a prime example of some of the collaborations that have gone on. And you don't always find that in every other city. I mean, it's to a point where it does get competitive, but I think the community here is really sticking together in that sense.
Yeah. And Tracy, when you write for NEXTpittsburgh about food, you've already said that they're some of the most read articles. Is that nationwide, or how big is the reach in terms of people interested in what is happening here? Because I know a lot of businesses, you guys say, they use your restaurants to recruit, and it represents Pittsburgh. You are our image. And is that what you're finding with your readers?
Yes, and I think it's a trend nationwide, certainly. I think a lot of people are interested in eat and drink, and I think it's a huge magnet for talent attraction, retention in any area. But one thing we do try to do, to get back to Kate's point, Sonja's point, is we do try to educate readers about certain things, because we do get a lot of feedback anytime we write about restaurants, beer. A lot of people make comments, and some of the comments are about affordability. And we try explaining, like one article we did was 7 serious pizzas, the top 7 serious pizzas in the city, and it was because these are pizzas that cost more. They have higher quality ingredients. They take more time. Some of the dough has to rise for 24 to 48 hours, that kind of thing. We try to make that distinction. So as people are entering the food scene or trying more and more different places or experimenting, they better understand those kind of issues around cost, around ingredients. We're huge on farm to table. Everyone wants to know about, how local is it? And we get very intelligent questions about some of our food and drink columns, and we get some very good suggestions about what to write about.
Yeah, that's great. And so much has changed since I started in the news business 21 years ago in Pittsburgh. Back then there was only a few top-notch restaurants. Now there's a big debate when you have people from out of town or you're bringing in new business or clients. There's a debate on where are you going to take these people. So my next question, in whatever order that you guys want to jump into this, is when is it going to be too much? When are we going to reach the level that, don't laugh at me, I'm a news person, I have to ask that question. I know it's not your favorite, but are we there yet? How much is too much? Anyone? Bill?
I'll go.
Yeah, go.
This is a question we talk about a lot. Obviously, I have a lot of interests. We have 18 restaurants, most of them here in Pittsburgh. And when is there too much, and when do we start eating each other? And yes, we are a tight community, but there's something new every day. We're about to move into an era where we're going to see players from other cities start to come in and join the market as well. It's really exciting. It's a little bit of a Wild West thing. Like, there's new restaurants all the time. I used to go to every single new restaurant when it opened. Now I'm like 10 behind my list. And I was over at Sonja's the other night. I worry about that point. I worry about that a lot. When do we get to that? A lot of my friends are open to restaurants, former employees open to restaurants, and I worry about where's that mark. I don't want to achieve that mark. If the restaurants are going to grow and be sustained by everything that's happening, then that's great. But if all the growth in all the other jobs is outpaced by the growth of the restaurants, I really worry about that part of the industry.
Everything's really tied in together here.
Well, yeah, you need people going out and spending money, and they got to have jobs, and they got to have disposable income. And so, there's 300,000 people in the city of Pittsburgh, less than 1 million in the metro area. The number of those people that are able to dine out at our restaurants is a very small percentage of that. So the population and the income levels need to grow to sustain our business. Hopefully it will, because everybody's all about opening some new restaurants.
Yeah.
So hopefully the customer base will grow.
Any other thoughts on
Bring
that?
your businesses here.
Yeah, I think if you start to, if Pittsburgh's food scene is on a national level, you're going to have to bring the criticality of the restaurants up on that level too, and the diversity of the types of restaurants. They can't all be high-end restaurants. They can't all be just like not high-end restaurants. You need a large selection out there, and I think that the more the merrier. And unfortunately, with criticality, you're going to find some really good restaurants that they've closed this year, and that sucks for them. But it's also it's making everybody push a little bit harder. It's making, like you said, what's going to keep my employees? I'm going to make a better business. I'm going to make a better environment for my employees, better living wage, better quality food for my customers. All of that stuff, it makes you push, and that's fun in the story of life, but it's also, it's keeping everything challenging and moving forward as the whole city feels that kind of push of elevation, I think.
Anyone else with that?
Well, to work off what Kate said, let's see. I think sort of from the first question, why are restaurants important here? They're important because it's a requirement for people in a city now, right? If people are going to come, we have to have a good restaurant scene. That's just required. In terms of pushing forward, if there's anyone to rely on for that, it's chefs. Every day we have to prove ourselves. I sent out 272 plates last night, and that means nothing today, because I've got to be there in half an hour, and I have to do, I don't know how many people will do tonight, but let's say at least 272 excellent plates again. So we don't rest on our laurels. There's never that. We just keep pushing because, like I said, what we did yesterday doesn't matter.
Wow, that's a lot to think about, because most of us, when we go out to eat, at least I relax, and that's my time where I don't have to worry about anything or think, and I'm just having fun. How bad is the pressure for all of you? That's a whole new world to think about. Is it rough, Bill?
Well, we were discussing our various versions of what sleep aids we take, and how we get to sleep and stay asleep before we came in here, so if that's any indication.
I think that says a lot.
I'm a
Kate,
big
do you feel the
Ambien
pressure?
fan,
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Really nice. So, and it's true throughout the country. Our business has a lot of problems with drugs and alcohol, but even if you don't have problems, it's hard to end your day and know that it's all going to be okay in the morning.
Yeah, as a chef owner or as a chef, you really, you're training people who might not have the coping capabilities that you have. So it's not just you carrying the restaurant, but you're carrying what's happening at home for them, or
Right.
as any small business owner does. But that's where you'll see the chefs who succeed are the ones who can have a million things coming at them at once and answer each question.
Be a therapist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Be at their best.
And that's where I think the community college is stepping in, because we realize there's a great demand. And I would really like to see, as you grow, that there's a level of commitment and support to the community college to support us in the investment that we're making to really prepare an educated and skilled workplace that will support what your future needs are. So I want it to grow because it offers the opportunities for the graduates that will come through the community college to have access to jobs in their community and to also support your immediate and future needs.
And having a program like that coming up in Pittsburgh again is so essential because, you know, I went to Bidwell Training Center on the north side, and one of the first things they did say to me was, your divorce rate is high, alcohol dependency high, if not absolutely necessary. You know, and
You're
so,
welcome.
and it's, and we watch the Food Network constantly, and we're all like kind of enamored with this food scene, and you know, I want to be a chef just like you wanted to be a rock star in the 80s, and now it's like, the reality of this lifestyle is totally different than what you see on TV. I mean, it is really difficult, you're right. I mean, and one Yelp review, one bad thing on the internet, and like, it can crush you. Not to mention that you're a rogue bunch of pirate people that have nothing in common trying to work together every night to problem solve and make everybody happy. So.
Dominic?
I mean, I think from the brewing side, it's a little bit different because we don't have near the saturation that the restaurant industry has right now. But on the other side, the things that keep us up at night are a few things. One, I don't want to be the first one to look for saturation. You know, I think there's plenty of opportunity. On the flip side, there's only so many ways you can combine water, barley, and hops to make different things. But that's on us internally in the brewing industry to keep pushing each other to try new things, to make sure it is a high quality product, but then also educating everyone who's coming to the city, the consumer, on what good beer is and where it comes from, because that's the only way we progress is have the demand be high. Otherwise, we are going to be the city that's kind of, we kind of know beer, we kind of think we have good food, but it's up to us to educate them, say this is good, and
Yeah.
maybe that's not so much.
And we are the city of champions.
Right,
So a
right.
lot's resting on your shoulders
We
with that, right?
can get there, but again, so it's a two-way relationship. It's demanding good stuff, at least from the brewing side. You know, don't settle for an average product locally. Demand high quality, and then demand new. If you have two breweries sitting next to each other doing the exact same thing, that really doesn't help the community, and it doesn't offer the consumer anything new.
All right, Tracy, I want you to start off our next thing, and I want to know what should we look for next on the food scene from Next Pittsburgh, and then in general. But what's coming up next? What's a big surprise that's coming down the pike?
Well, we try to look for things that are different, that's, you know, maybe sometimes under the radar for our readers. One thing we're doing this week, thinking of what's next, I'm working on this story right now, an article about Salem's Grill and Market. How many here have ever even heard of Salem's Grill and Market? These guys all have. So we're kind of looking at food as a way to bring people together. And Salem's, as you know, is run by a guy who's Muslim. He got a $250,000 loan from his Jewish mentor, just a friend of the family, who gave him the money outright, wasn't a loan. He said, I know you'll pay it back, no paperwork involved. And if you go to his restaurant any day of the week, you see all kinds of diverse people. And this is in Pittsburgh, where we have a problem with diversity. There are plenty of black people and Asian people and Muslim people and Jews. And I know this because I went in with my camera and took pictures of people and asked them where they were from. So they were telling me they were from the Congo, they were from Sudan, they were from countries. I said, could you spell that, please? I mean, it was really good stuff. So we're looking for that, especially in terms of growth. You know, Mount Lebanon got its first Thai restaurant within the last year. That's sad. But I mean, is there room for improvement in the food scene? Yeah, I would say so. So we're kind of looking for that, what's setting the stage. In different types of places like the Small Galley in the Strip District. I don't know if people are unfamiliar with that. That's a really great food concept, and it's an upcoming trend in the future, where they have 4 different purveyors, and they're there, I don't know, a year and a half, a year? Some set amount of time, and they get...
18 months, I think.
Yeah, so it's kind of an incubator thing, but they've got a built-in audience. It's a really cool space. It's got a great bar, great beer, and it's going really strong, so that's part of the wave of the future.
Dominic, what do you think?
I think for the brewing industry, what's up and coming. It's, like Bill said, people coming in from outside. I mean, Southern Tier's moving over to the North Shore. Everybody knows about that. But I'd say it's also an interesting thing for the consumer to look for one thing we always ask ourselves is, what's the Pittsburgh craft beer? What is Pittsburgh craft beer? What's the identity? I know 4 years ago when I completed my paper, it was very traditional. It was European methods, a lot of religious symbols. And I'd say with the development of everything that's going on here is, how does the tech, park, nature aspect fit into that? And what is, when you say, I've had Pittsburgh beer, what does that become? That's going to be developed over the next 3 or 4 years. And then finally, I think the idea of the mass-produced taps going away in most of the restaurants. The Independent Brewing Company is a great example of this. Only serves beer brewed within 50 miles of the city. They do good food, so I see that happening in a lot more restaurants over the next few years. I think Small Mangali is just about the same way too.
All right, let's go down the line. Sonja?
What's next? I'm sort of known for not being what's next, because I kind of do the same, like, I try to just think about what's solid. So I think you're looking at, I think you're going to see, it'll be wonderful when good restaurants, more good restaurants, that would be great. Like when we have hit our saturation of good food in Pittsburgh, I will be shocked, because we just want more good restaurants. That would be great. But I think what you're going to see is that that we have a lot of, excuse the pun, but like flash in the pans, and places open and close and open and close. And you probably, I think in 10 years, will see us back up here. Like, you'll see that there are new, there are like these places that have been around. I mean, I've been 8, how long have you been open? 22, or, and so it's just that maybe, I don't know, that's what I'm going to say, that you'll just see that we just work hard, work together, and maybe like an appreciation for what has lasted.
Yeah. All right, before I get wrapped, I want all of you to answer that too, so Kate?
I can tell you what I'd love to see for this city is that we take a little bit of a veg-forward approach. We take back gluten. And we also, we,
Why didn't I think of that? Oh my God.
as consumers, we start to put our money towards healthier living and healthier growing, and support that kind of cuisine as much as we support burgers and bacon and burgers. That's what I love.
Quintin?
What I would like to see is the anxiety of the restaurant owners are feeling supported and are getting the trained workforce that they need, and the opportunities are continuing to grow for graduates coming out of all the programs.
Bill, wrap us up.
I've been through a couple cycles of this in Pittsburgh now, being the old grandfather, and this is the first cycle of this kind of boom-bust thing. I mean, the microbrew thing happened already 12, 14 years ago. And the restaurant thing's happened a couple cycles, and this is the one cycle that feels for real. I mean, there are some like flash in the pans coming and going, but there's a real, there's a growth going on. And I know the midterm census estimates came out, and we've actually lost in population in Pittsburgh. Last week it was in the PG, 3,000 people. But I believe that we may have lost 3,000 bodies, but I do believe that the population has skewed younger. I believe that more people are working, more businesses are coming here. So I feel a real positive movement forward for Pittsburgh. So I have great hopes.
Future looks good. All right, thank you all for joining us. I think we're out of time, right? We have time for questions? Thank you.